Good morning, all. CamelbackTrading.org coming to you this Tuesday morning, August 4th. We're looking at yesterday's market profile of the SPY ETF here on Window Trader. And after a very nice start to the day yesterday by the bulls and holding it for most of the day, right? We gapped with a monthly gap, a weekly gap. We got into the large gap from February. However, the continued failure to close it keeps becoming more and more disturbing if you're a bull. And this morning now, we're looking to possibly gap lower into the monthly and weekly gap. Now, the monthly gap, I don't have that much of a problem. They do not hold. The weekly gap to me is a lot more important for two reasons. Number one, it's the second of the gaps, but more importantly, we had an inside week last week, right? You go with that trade and monitor it for continuation or lack of. Well, if you get lack of, and this is a failed breakout attempt, well, then that gap above us is going to hold, and then at some point you're going to trade to the bottom of the balance that we get into. That's not what the bulls want. So I think it's fairly important to hold the weekly gap. If you don't hold the weekly gap and get accepted back in, you want to come back out. To me, those are very, very important points for the bulls this morning. This would be an island reversal. I will not call it an island top. An island top happens at a top, right? Like when NASDAQ had theirs at triple Qs. That was a true island top at the all-time high. We're not at our all-time high. So it would be an island reversal. Do I think that would hold after all the bulls have accomplished so far? I don't think so. But I'll tell you what, if it does, well, then that gives the bears that much more confidence to continue pushing lower. All right, destinations and a game plan. So right now, with over an hour to go, a little over an hour, we'll go with both sides of yesterday's low, since we look like we could possibly gap lower. So on the upside, your first destination right now, I'll use yesterday's low of 327.73 if we gap lower. Then we have 11 wide, 328.90. So if this gap does not hold, before we get more market-generated information, your next destination is at 11 wide POC, right? 11 out of 13 is very powerful. Now, you'd have to get accepted into M to get there, but if you do, you will get there. Above there, we have our pre-market high of 329.09, and then we have yesterday's high of 329.62 and filling the gap at 332.58. For the downside, again, we'll use yesterday's low of 327.73, and then filling the monthly gap at 327.50, and then filling the weekly gap at 326.63. In between there, for now, we have our pre-market low of 327.15. Then we have 326.13. That's the price probe from the 31st. 321.33 daily low. So what is the game plan for this morning? Well, if we do gap lower, it's going to depend on the size of the gap. We're going to have two forces at work here again, just like we had the other day when we gapped higher into the large gap. Do we get the monthly? I would think we would get the monthly, especially if we gap lower, right? 327. We're trading right around there right now. So if we do gap lower, there's a good chance you're going to close the monthly before you have a chance to do anything at 9:30. Then the focus point becomes 326.63 and then the price probe. So can you take a put play on a gap once the monthly closes? You can. Looking for the close of the weekly gap. I would take some off there, and then I would certainly take off more at the price probe to see if that holds. If it doesn't hold, then guess what? The odds of trading M period would be very good that day. That remains to be seen. If you take a short play, though, and it gets filled the gap right away, I'm out of that trade and I reassess. If we're going to open really close to yesterday's low, I'll probably just watch. If we get up to M period and fail to get into it, then that's a put play you can take. So say we don't gap lower, we open inside of A, trade up to M, but don't get accepted into it. Well, then you can take a put play to see if we do come out and take out yesterday's low. If you get accepted into M, you are trading to POC, plain and simple. Call play for right now, I do not have one. If you are to open inside yesterday's range, I guess you can take a call play against yesterday's low. It will be lower value, but you could take one. I'd be out, though, below yesterday's low, because then you're certainly going to go and fill that monthly gap. Again, all early plays. Inside my voice channel room at camelbacktrading.org, we are going through these scenarios every minute of the trading day. Let's go to the charts. So monthly, right now, one time framing up, we still have the gap. Even if the gap gets filled, we're one time framing up for 3 months, really 4 months right now to start. So it remains to be seen. It'll be interesting if we do gap lower. That'll be 2 gaps and 2 trading days in August. But I'm still not sold on us gapping lower yet this morning. Weekly, that's the real important one. Why? Because if you get accepted back into this range, you're at least in a 3-week balance, right? It's an inside week. If you get accepted back into it, where's your destination? Well, the bottom of the 2-week balance, which is down around the 319 level, right? Those 2 weekly lows that I talked about that were close to each other. So you do not want to get accepted back into there as a bull. And really the same on the daily. If you fill the gap, which is the weekly gap, you're back into this whole balance, and your next destination would be the bottom of it. So pretty important. It's one thing not to fill the gap above you, which they're having so much trouble doing. Quite another to fail at your monthly and weekly gap and get accepted back into the balance. Remains to be seen. The volume has not helped them. 53 million shares yesterday. Our average is down to 67 million. They need reinforcements. They need the next time frame, I believe, to try to push them over the top. Good luck trading today. Have a great day, and we'll recap at 4 p.m.